Hello everybody, this is the third part of my Pokemon adventure, and we'll be covering the Johto Elite Four, and possibly Champion. So this will probably be one of the shorter ones as it's covering much less. It's not covering my whole adventure, just this part. So, I hope you guys enjoy. Let's get started. After I split up with Zach, after about a week or two, I get up to have my first battle, which will be against Will, the first of the Elite Four. It will be a 5-on-5 battle, and I have already planned who I'm going to use. So, I send in Houndoom, as Will sends in Xatu. I remember to try and catch one of these things pre-evolution, so I guess I get to see how strong it is. I start with Smog, but it blows it back with Gust. So I call for a Dark Pulse as Houndoom lands a direct hit, but right before it hits, Xatu puts up a light screen, which lessens the damage. Now Will is on the offensive, with Houndoom trying to dodge many air slashes, but getting hit by a couple, causing it to flinch, making it hard to attack. I then come up with a plan. I set up a Smog, and when Xatu blows away the Smog with Gust, Houndoom is gone, and she fires off a Dark Pulse behind Xatu, as Xatu was distracted, but before Houndoom can land an overheat, Xatu uses Destiny Bond, which, after Xatu is knocked out, Houndoom is pulled down with it. It is a double knockout, and has now down to a 4-on-4. I decide to send in Pinsir as he sends an Executor. As we start, I think this is perfect. He starts with a Sleep Powder, which hits, putting Pinsir to sleep, but I then call for a Sleep Talk, which makes Pinsir charge with a strength, hitting the unsuspecting Executor off guard. Executor tries to finish off Pinsir, and waking it up. Pinsir then charges with an X-Scissor, which hits the slow-moving tree, dealing major damage. Pinsir is able to finish it off with a Storm Throw, throwing it off the platform. But Pinsir's not coming down. After this kill, it's gotten all riled up, and it's ready to fight more, and seems to have gotten stronger. Will then sends in his Girafarig, which immediately goes for Destiny Bond, as Pinsir hits a X-Scissor, knocking it out. Knocking itself out in the process. I guess Will has favorite move. It is down to a 2-on-3 with my advantage. So, since I have the advantage, I send in Scizor to, with the type advantage, increase that advantage, as Will sends in Slowbro. I start with a Swords Dance, try and get a sweep going, but as soon I'm brought back to reality, upon learning the fact that Slowbro has Fire Blast, which Scizor is unable to dodge and ends up going down pretty much immediately. I want to save my best Pokemon for last, so I send in Kabuto. Kabuto is able to finish off the Slowbro with many Bug Bites, Leech Lifes, and Mega Drains, but has gotten weak as Will sends in his final Pokemon, Jynx. I start with an Aqua Jet, but once Kabuto gets hit, Jynx hits a Thunder Punch, throwing Kabuto back. I decide to try something, so I call for another Aqua Jet, and once Jynx is charging up a Thunder Punch, I tell Kabuto just stop. When Jynx swings, Kabuto can get in, land a Leech Right, and Mega Drain before being thrown off with Psychic. Jynx is still strong though, and fires off a Sheer Cold. Before it hits, Kabuto uses Endure to save itself. It is very weak though, and Jynx is still going strong. To save itself from another Sheer Cold, it evolves into Kabuto. It is able to dodge thanks to its new, longer legs. Since it's become quicker, Jynx is not quick enough to hit another Thunder Punch when Kabutops uses Aqua Jet, and is hit with a Leech Life. Then Will uses Ice Beam on the arena floor, making it hard for Kabutops to move, and then uses Sheer Cold. I tell Kabutops to dig its scythes into the ground to gain traction, which is creating a fissure with a giant rock coming out of it. I recognize the move as Stone Edge. Before Kabutops can land its hit, Jinx hits its sheer cold. Both moves hit simultaneously, resulting in a double knockout. I won since I still had a Pokemon in the back, but for the easiest Elite Four member, this was too close. I congratulate my Pokemon in good battle, and shake hands with Will. I begin training for the next Elite Four member, which I will have a match in 2 weeks, and it will be a rematch versus the gym leader, Koga. So this should be interesting. After training for a while, I pick the team I'm planning to use for this battle. The battle is another 5-on-5, so I decide to start with Sandslash as Koga sends in his Ariados. I set up a Sandstorm as Koga sets up a Sticky Web, which will probably cause me problems for later, but for now, Sandslash disappears into the sand. Ariados uses Nightshade to search for Sandslash to see where it's coming, but all it sees is a glowing ball ramming towards it. When Ariados tries to stop Sandslash with Spider Web, the web just slides off Sandslash as it crashes into Ariados, knocking Ariados away. I then call for an Earthquake, which is able to finish off Ariados. Koga then sends in Muck, which just sits there taking Earthquake, and once Sandslash goes in for a Gyro Ball, Muck catches it and Toxic Sandslash, trapping it within itself, unable to move. I return Sandslash and referee calls it unable to battle. I then decide to send in Venomoth, since she has no close range attacking moves and can't be poisoned. So Muck has to go on the offense and fires off Sludge after Sludge at Venomoth. Very few hit, even when they do, they're doing very little damage. But Venomoth uses Sleep Powder and then uses Whirlwind to blow it towards Muck's direction. Muck is put to sleep and Venomoth hits a Dream Eater, which leaves Muck weak. So Koga switches into his own Venomoth. And both Venomoth are unable to hit their Sleep Powders because they're so fast. But both charge and hit a Sludge Bomb at each other repeatedly. After a while, both faint simultaneously from Sludge Bombs. Koga sends back in his Muck as I send in Dugtrio. Dugtrio is easily able to finish off the weakened Muck with Sand Tomb and a Dig, so I'm at a 3-on-2 advantage. He then sends in his Fortress, which starts with a Gyro Ball, and is charging at Dugtrio. I call for a Dig, but Dugtrio's having trouble because of the Sticky Web, which results in him getting hit. He's finally able to use Dig, but Fortress just protects itself, and once again, goes for Gyro Ball, which hits Dugtrio. Against my orders, Dugtrio hits a Slash. The Fortress ends up using Melda Burst, knocking out Dugtrio. I then send in Croconaw, which charges with a Crunch and is able to grab Fortress in its mouth and throws it away with Hydro Pump into a wall, and then charges with Aqua Jet, which, as Fortress uses Gyro Ball, once the two moves meet, Fortress begins to gain some ground and then Croconaw begins to push itself and turns an Aqua Jet into Liquidation and overpowers Fortress and finishes with a Ice Fang, freezing the creature solid. As Koga sends in Crobat, Crobat is so fast that Croconaw can't do anything, and is just waiting to catch it with an Ice Fang. When Crobat charges, Croconaw is only able to bite the tip of its wing before it faints, leaving a small crystal on it. I then send in my final Pokemon, which is Gyarados, which stands there and begins to watch Crobat carefully. I call for Scary Face to slow Crobat down, but it misses. But Crobat is still slower than it was before, probably because of the ice on its wing weighing it down. Gyarados is able to predict Crobat's movements, and I call for an Ice Fang. And Gyarados thinks it's a good time, since I trust my Pokemon. Gyarados has taken many Brave Birds, but finally lands an Ice Fang, throwing Crobat to the ground, and then uses Waterfall to knock Crobat out. Or so we thought. The real Crobat came out from behind the smoke to hit a Cross Poison, before Gyarados can finally land a Scary Face. But Crobat is now on the defensive, as its blinding speed has been lowered, and if it is grabbed, it's probably dead. So the battle continues until Crobat has to land to rest, so I call for an Ice Fang, which freezes Crobat as Gyarados hits a Waterfall, knocking it out for real this time. The second Elite Four is done. Next Elite Four member I battle is named Bruno. So I start the battle with my Hitmonlee to have a fighting-on-fighting face-off. But instead of sending out a fighting type, Bruno sends out a giant Steelix. I was not expecting this, as Bruno is one of the more secretive Elite Four members, trains a lot more offhand, and he's never used an Onyx before, at least not one of this scale. Nonetheless a Steelix. But, so, I call for a Fake Out, which deals very little damage, but makes Steelix flinch at least. Steelix then uses Dig. I tell Hitmonlee to use Bounce when Steelix emerges, so when the ground begins to shake, Hitmonlee jumps up, and then once Steelix is up on the ground, Hitmonlee uses High Jump Kick, which is able to land. But Steelix then uses Dig again. Hitmonlee, getting overzealous, jumps up trying to do the same thing and waits for the ground to shake. He does so and uses High Jump Kick too early, but Steelix was just using Earthquake underground, causing Hitmonlee to deal a massive amount of recoil damage from the High Jump Kick, and Steelix is sadly able to finish off Hitmonlee with a High Jump Kick. Steelix is sadly able to finish off Hitmonlee with another Dig. I then send in Heracross. As Steelix goes for another Dig, Heracross is much more patient than Hitmonlee, and when Steelix emerges, Heracross blocks the attack and hits back with a counter, which throws Steelix away and then charges with a Brick Break, knocking it out. The battle is now even, and he switches into his own Hitmonlee, so I switch into Venomoth. As Hitmonlee charges with Blaze Kick, Venomoth flies out of Blaze Kick's range, baiting Hitmonlee, like we practiced, into a Sleep Powder, which Venomoth uses once Hitmonlee is in the air, unable to change direction. And Hitmonlee falls asleep, but once Venomoth uses Dream Eater, as Hitmonlee is falling asleep, it seems Bruno has came prepared for this and uses Sleep Talk. With Venomoth being unprepared, she is hit hard by a Blaze Kick. And before she can use Dream Eater again, Hitmonlee wakes up. And so now that Sleep Powder won't do as well, I use Whirlwind to keep Hitmonlee at a distance, tell Venomoth to fire off Sludge Bombs. Eventually, Hitmonlee goes for a High Jump Kick. Venomoth uses Whirlwind so that Hitmonlee misses its hit by pushing its back, so Hitmonlee feints due to recoil. He then sends out his strongest Pokemon, his Machamp, who is able to finish off Venomoth with a Rock Slide after I land a Sludge Bomb, which, unluckily for me, poisons, giving Machamp the Guts boost. I then send in Manectric, who is fast enough to dodge most of Machamp's hits, and fire off some Discharge with it darting around with Quick Attack. The constant discharge, Machamp is beginning to get weak. It is starting to tire, but right before it faints, it catches Manectric off guard by a sudden burst of speed with Mach Punch, which finishes off Manectric due to the Guts boost. But Manectric uses Crunch on Machamp's hand, bites down right before it faints, finishing Machamp off as it faints simultaneously. Bruno then sends in Hitmontop, as I send in Venusaur. And I start with a Leech Seed on the battlefield, creating a rougher terrain for my opponent, as I ask Venusaur to use Sludge Bomb as Hitmonlee uses Rapid Spin to get rid of the Leech Seed. But since it's distracted, Sludge Bomb lands a direct hit, but it then charges with Gyro Ball, which is met with a Double Edge. Neither is giving ground, but I call for a Seed Bomb, and since Venusaur can still fire from its flower, while in a head-to-head, it bombs Hitmonlee with the seed until it lets up on the Gyro Ball and finishes with Double Edge. Bruno sends in his final Pokemon, Hitmonchan, who charges with a Fire Punch before my weakened Venusaur can react and gets burned. Venusaur is able to land a Seed Bomb before it's hit with another Fire Punch and goes down. I then send in my final Mon, Heracross, who already took a decent amount of damage from Steelix. I start with a different strategy with Heracross. I call for a Retaliate, and since Venusaur just fainted, Heracross rushes forward at blazing speed, dashing through Hitmonchan, knocking it out. Third Elite Four member done, one more to go, and hopefully the champion. Karen, who is the final Elite Four member, will be gone for a while, so it seems I will be unable to meet up with Zach for the Silver Conference. But once she is back, I challenge her to a battle. As I start with Heracross, she starts with Umbreon. She starts with a Protect as Heracross waits. I've studied for this battle and picked Heracross specifically for this. She goes for Toxic. Exactly what I was waiting for. It hits Heracross. Heracross then sprints towards Umbreon and hits with a Brick Break, knocking it out, taking poison damage. She then sends in a Sneasel, which meets a similar fate after it dodges with a quick attack for a while. Let poison damage do its work and eventually takes out Heracross. But Heracross did a great job knocking out 2 Mons. She then sends in a Tyranitar, as I send in my Pinsir. Pinsir charges in for a Strength, which pushes Tyranitar back, but not dealing much damage. Tyranitar then hits with a Crunch and throws Pinsir away. Pinsir hits the ground hard, but stands back up and charges with X-Scissor, which Tyranitar catches with a Rock Wrecker, knocking Pinsir out. I send in Kabutops while Tyranitar is charging his hit, and hits a nasty Aqua Jet and Mega Drain. Tyranitar tries to catch Kabutops, but Kabutops is too quick and Tyranitar faints shortly after. She then sends in Houndoom, which uses Smog. I tell Kabuto to use Stone Edge, but the next we see Houndoom, it's charging a Solar Beam and it's too late to dodge, as it hits, taking Kabutops out. This should be expected from Karen's Ace. I then send in Scizor, which is at a severe disadvantage, and I tell it to run around and just try not to get hit, landing occasional Bullet Punches or an X-Scissor. But sadly, Scizor gets hit by a Fire Blast, knocking it out. But it has tired Houndoom in the process. I am down to my last Pokemon, and sadly it's one of my least reliable ones, but I guess they're my final hope. I send in Hitmonlee, who is able to finish off Houndoom with a Fake Out, thankfully. But then Karen sends in Honchkrow, and I feel my stomach sink, as I know this thing is a flying type, and Hitmonlee after the kill is beginning to get overconfident. So, will this be the end of my Elite Four run? Honchkrow is pelting away at Hitmonlee, and Hitmonlee is getting close to fainting. And I call it to do its best, and I tell it to use a Fake Out, which he does, thankfully, stunning Honchkrow for a second. He is able to hit a Blaze Kick, burning Honchkrow, weakening it slightly. But Honchkrow is far from being knocked out. Honch is now playing more cautiously, starting to use Dark Pulse, so pushing Hitmonlee back so it can't get in close. I only have one option, but it's a dangerous one. I tell Hitmonlee to use High Jump Kick on the ground. He stares at me, but nods in agreement. When it does, he takes massive damage, barely holding on, but creating a massive dust cloud. When the referee is about to call the match, Hitmonlee appears out of the dust with a High Jump Kick, which hits Honchkrow, knocking it into the ground and out. I beat the final Elite Four. I can't believe it. Hitmonlee finally did something good! Now, for the champion. After Lance attends the Johto League as the champion, he had to attend, which I find out Zach won. Zach had won. I hope to meet up with him once this is over, whatever the outcome may be. But before we start, Lance explains the rules. No one is allowed to switch out. If you do, the Pokemon is counted as unable to battle, and it will be a 6-on-6. I start with my Venusaur, as he starts with his Gyarados, and the battle begins. I start with a Sludge Bomb to get early damage, but Gyarados deflects with an Aqua Tail, dealing minimal damage. Venusaur then rushes in with a Double Edge, which is met with a Waterfall, both dealing a decent amount of damage. I tell Venusaur to fire off a Leech Seed, which hits but it's knocked off with a Flail. The battle is very close and it's going back and forth for a while, both Pokemon getting weak. I call for a Siege Bomb and as Gyarados uses Ice Fang, both simultaneously hitting and resulting in a double knockout. I send in Scizor as Lance sends in Aerodactyl. The battle starts as Scizor sets up a Sword Stance as he is hit with a Wing Attack, but fires off with a Bullet Punch incredibly quickly, knocking Aerodactyl down to the ground. Scizor then starts letting out a fury of blows with Bullet Punch, and Aerodactyl dodges most and hits with a Rock Slide. Scizor then charges with X-Scissor and is met with Aerodactyl's Wing Attack, but Scizor jumps back and fires off another flurry of Bullet Punches and Night Slashes before Aerodactyl can react, resulting in a double knockout. Lance then sends in his Dragonite, which Scizor charges toward, but is batted away with Dragon Tail, but then Swarm activates. Scizor gets a great boost of energy and charges, but Dragonite's just standing there until Scizor gets too close to dodge, as an incoming Fire Blast fires off, and that is more than enough to knock it out. I decide to send in Gyarados from here because it's not affected by Fire Blast that much. Gyarados shoots a Scary Face to slow Dragonite down and then charges with a Waterfall and Ice Fang, creating a large Ice Crystal, and the Ice Fang freezes the Waterfall and heading straight for Dragonite. Because of this Dragonite's slow nature and the Scary Face, it is unable to dodge and is taken out. But Lance soon sends in another Dragonite. I ask Gyarados to use another Scary Face with Lance, but when I try and use the Waterfall Ice Fang combo, it's hit by a Thunder, knocking it clean out. After that, I can tell this is his strongest Dragonite, and I send in Houndoom. Lance uses Dragon Rush to charge in, giving him the advantage. As Houndoom does not like close quarter combat, I try and give her space with Smog, but is blown away by Whirlwind and Flamethrower's not doing too much damage. So Dragonite continues to charge with Dragon Rush. Houndoom tries to run around and dodge, tire the Dragonite out, but all it does is tire itself out, making it unable to dodge the incoming Thunder with a direct hit, knocking it out. I decide to send in my second to last Pokemon, which is my Croconaw. Even with Croconaw being one of my least experienced Pokemon, it is a fighter, so I brought it along. Croconaw starts with a Hydro Pump to try and get some long range damage off, which hits and pushes Dragonite back. Croconaw then charges with a Crunch at the exhausted Dragonite. It lands a Crunch down and blows Dragonite into the ground with Hydro Pump, knocking it out. Lance then sends in his Charizard. I have the advantage, but Croconaw is beginning to tire, and this Charizard is fresh off the block. I tell Croconaw to charge in with Liquidation, which he does, but misses as Charizard flies high into the sky and then begins to charge Solar Beam. I told Croconaw to try and find some place to hide, but there's nowhere, and Croconaw just stands there, ready to take the hit. But once the dust settles, Croconaw is nowhere to be seen. But once Charizard lands, it pops out of the ground and lands a Liquidation from behind, which catches Charizard off guard. Charizard, in a state of panic, flies up, distracted, and Croconaw is able to finish with a Hydro Pump. Lance's Dragonite then comes out. Croconaw tries to use the same strategy, but Lance uses Ice Beam to freeze the tunnels, forcing Croconaw up. To match Dragonite's strength, Croconaw evolves into Feraligatr. But even with this boost of strength, it cannot hold up to the power of Lance's Dragonite, and Feraligatr is knocked out by a Thunder Punch from Lance's Dragonite. I then send in Manectric. I purposely left him last, so that if we win or that if we lose, my starter will be by my side to the end. So I start with a Quick Attack to rush in. Dragonite is not able to keep up with the Manectric's blazing speed and is hit with a Crunch and Discharge, and Manectric is able to blow itself back with Flamethrower. Afterwards, Dragonite charges with an Outrage, which deals an insane amount of damage, but Manectric is able to dodge most of the attack and hit with a Discharge in the process. With Dragonite being dazed, Manectric runs in with a large sum of damage before the onslaught continues. The next attack will knock Manectric out just because of the sheer power of Lance's Pokemon. So we charge, ready to end it here, and we do it. We charge with Quick Attack as Dragonite hits us with an Outrage. Manectric uses Discharge. Both Pokemon fall, but in the replay, they see Lance's Dragonite falls just a split second before Manectric. So, I'm declared the winner. I'm the champion of Kanto. I've done it. Me and my Pokemon have done it. We've won. I couldn't have done it without my Johto and Kanto Pokemon, though I hope to continue my adventure in the future. After I won, I decide what to do. After the winner of the Johto League arrives at their Elite Four, which is Zach. He decides not to challenge at the moment, as he still wants to get revenge on Team Rocket for what they did to his Magikarp. But we promised to meet again one day, and I tell him when he challenges the Elite Four, he better make it to me. After seeing how strong Karen's Honchkrow was, I decided to go on a little excursion to Sinnoh. But before I go, I have to battle. I promised Price that once he got his Piloswine back, I wanted to fight him. It's not a hard fight, but it's great to see Price happy, and I still keep up with him. But in return, Price gives me an egg for keeping my promise, and I happily accept it, saying, if there's anything you need, just ask. I leave all but my Manectric and the egg Price gave me back at home in case I need them for a challenger or just an emergency in Kanto or Johto. So I make my way to Sinnoh with Manectric in tow. So I hope you guys enjoyed my Pokemon adventure. The Sinnoh part will probably take a while to get out, just because when I posted the original one, I already had some of Johto written. So Sinnoh will probably take a while. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Do not expect Sinnoh anytime soon. I have no clue when I will be able to get that out, as my life's gotten very busy recently. So who knows? But I hope you enjoyed. Have a good day, night, whatever. Goodbye.